Joel Klatt joins us now with us each week, courtesy of mybookie.ag. That is mybookie.ag. Don't forget code next round. Some of you saw him on the Alabama-Texas game over the weekend. 5-alarm fire here today, Klatt. 5-alarm fire in the state of Alabama. Almost lost a regular season game. What the crap happened, Klatt?
And non-conference to boot.
Non-conference to boot,
You would have just sent everybody. Listen, Bama could be fine moving forward, but there's some serious concern. There's some areas of this team that I think that we probably underestimated the concern coming into this season. And because of the two great players that they have, Bryce Young and Will Anderson. And so from that standpoint, everyone said, hey, they're going to be, and I was in this boat. They have Nick Saban. They've got their coordinators back. They've got this great defense back. All of that was true. They've got the Heisman Trophy winner back. That's true. Jahmyr Gibbs should improve the run game. The problem is that the offensive line played really poor and the wide receivers don't get open. So, Bryce was under a tremendous amount of duress because of that. And you look at the lineage of wide receivers that they've had, and it's not just great wide receivers, but speed. And I'm sure you guys have been talking about it, all morning long. They had no ability to get the safeties out of there. And so the safeties were just down in the run game, helping that front seven. And they had no answer for it. No answer for it. And just to give you some sense of I don't think the statistics give you an accurate description or analysis of just how poor the run game was. And partly because Bryce scrambled a few times, and then the 81-yard run by McClellan. And I'm, listen, ifs and buts are candy and nuts. But if you pull out just Bryce's rushing yards, and then you look at just the running backs, they were 17 carries for, a little over 100 yards. Well, then you realize that 81 of that came on one rush, and you fall on the fact that 16 carries by running backs for just over 40 yards. It was 2.6 yards per carry. That ain't going to cut it, guys. It's just not. And that in particular without a wide receiver core that can take the top off the defense. You can get away with it when you got Jamison Williams. And that's one of the reasons why they got away with it a year ago. They weren't diverse enough in the run game schematics. I was told all week that their offensive line had improved, that they were going to run more schemes. So like gap schemes, pulling guys, getting downhill in the run game, then some zone. And then all I saw was zone. I think they got frustrated with Jahmyr Gibbs in his pass protection. I tried to point it out. He missed a pretty simple pass protection early in the game. And on the subsequent passing downs for about a quarter and a half, he wasn't in the game, and he was their best threat as a receiver. So all of a sudden they were in this issue where they had no targets. Wide receivers Saturday for Alabama, no wide receiver went for over 40 yards. That's not going to cut it. So remember, we have to evaluate this team with their own standard, which is national championship. And the team that I saw on Saturday is not going to win a national championship. They're going to have to improve in those two specific areas.
For a decade plus, and we were talking about it, Joel, Alabama's had first-round wide receivers, top-end guys. Not having that, it doesn't look like they're just going to miraculously have that after watching them for a couple of weeks. You factor that with the offensive line you mentioned. If you're Bill O'Brien, how do you make adjustments to work around both of those areas?
Well, here's what you should take if you're Bama fans is that Bill's really smart and Bryce is really good. And so they eventually got there, which that's the good news, is that late in the game when they absolutely needed it, here's what they started to do. They started to use formations to their advantage, and then they started attacking the linebackers for Texas, and they did it really well. It's one of the things I always lament, guys. I'm sure Bama fans, you guys not happy with me on Saturday, partly because your team played like trash, but you thought I was way too complimentary of a defense that was just absolutely dominating the Bama offense to the tune of 4 straight 3-and-outs in the middle of 6 straight punts. But apparently I was supposed to be effusive in my praise of Bama's offense for the Bama fans during that stretch. But I will say the Texas defense late got way too safe. So early in the game, during that stretch, the safeties were playing really aggressive. And then as soon as Bill O'Brien saw them start to get softer and start to try to protect, the lead. Hey, we might win this one. Let's protect. He immediately started attacking the linebackers in the middle of the field and using the boundary. And he started getting 3 releases out to the boundary in order to really cause havoc on that weak side hook curl defender. It was a really smart adjustment. He was doing it with Gibbs. He was doing it with Latu. Although I think Gus kept calling him Latu. But that's all right. You know, who cares? I kept trying to say like Latu, and he was like Cameron Latu. It's all good, my man. So they were attacking that boundary. And that adjustment got them going. It doesn't answer your question specifically, but there's things that you can do. And one of the things that they started to do was use Latu, use Gibbs in the passing game to attack those linebackers. But rest assured, they're going to need one of these kids, these youngsters on the outside, to develop in the deep game. If they don't get that, it's going to be a lot of this, in particular on the road. I went through this on my podcast that came out early this morning. By the way, Joel Klatt Show, go check it out, download, subscribe, shameless plug there. I was talking about the fact that they struggled on the road last year. You guys know it. Florida, A&M a loss, Auburn 4 overtimes. Obviously, Mississippi State, they went out there and crushed them. So, you know, they took care of business on that day. But now they go on the road against Texas and they struggle again. They can't expect Bryce to just be Superman when they need him, because if they play like that again, and I'm not even talking about the penalties, if they play like that again at, you know, LSU or Arkansas, by the way, Arkansas looks pretty good. If they play like that at Ole Miss, if they play like that at Tennessee, you know, you can't always expect the other team to miss field goals, the other teams not to execute in the red area, and for Bryce Young to put a cape on his back. So that's what I would be nervous about if I was a Bama fan.
Being 2 questions. We'll start first with so many penalties for Alabama. I mean, so many I couldn't even remember the last time they had many. You guys pointed out on the broadcast, but 15 penalties. A lot of
the school record was 16. I believe it was either 01 or 91. I can't remember the exact, but obviously this was the most under Saban.
Can you coach out the tendency of a DB when he panics wanting to grab? Can you coach that out of a DB quickly? Because that seemed to be what was happening on Saturday. There was a tendency to grab and hold when they felt like they were losing phase.
Yes, you can, although, you know, all of us revert back to default when we are put inside of a pressure cooker. And one of the reasons why the contact and the grabbing from the Bama defensive backs was so pronounced is that Texas had the speed to exploit them. And so, you know, some of these teams don't have that. And so the defensive backs are not going to feel the pressure like they did in this game on Saturday. But by the way, and I mentioned it in the broadcast, this is exactly what happened against Georgia in the national championship game. Late in that game, Bama has the lead, and Georgia decides to go deep, and they get a big pass interference, and then they actually hit it on the next play, both against what's my man?
Tyree Jackson. Yeah.
You know, and so and the same thing happened on Saturday. So you can do your best to coach that out of a player, but when they get into a situation where the guy across from them can really put pressure on them with speed, generally those things pop up. So I would be, if I were you guys, I would expect that to be an issue in your bigger games this year. I think that there's going to be more of those than you probably want to see.
Joel Klatt is with us. He joins us each week on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, courtesy of mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag. You see the banner there at the bottom, mybookie.ag, code next round to get that double deposit bonus when you go to mybookie.ag, use code next round. It is so easy to focus on the negative for Alabama. I do want to point out a positive, Klatt, is the Texas run game was neutralized very well by Alabama's defense.
Totally.
And if Bijan Robinson isn't going to run well on Alabama, I don't know who is. I mean, that's a good run game.
Totally. And listen, you know, I think Texas offensively is really good. I would have loved to have seen that game with Texas, even with a healthy backup, you know, just because you would have gotten some semblance of continuity on offense from them. Not saying that they absolutely would have won. I think if Ewers plays the game, there's a good chance that they would have won that game. But that being said, once Bama realized that they didn't have a huge threat downfield because of the quarterback situation, it was lights out as far as stopping the run. And even before that, even when they were taking shots down the field, it was pretty clear that Texas was going to have to be reliant on movement, misdirection, you could say gimmicks on first and second down to build themselves into the pitch count, if you will, or the schedule in order to take the shots necessary to potentially win the game. And that's because of that front seven. The front seven for Alabama is incredible. I thought that they were sensational outside of the penalties, and the Will Anderson penalties were the ones that just got me. I mean, you talk lining up offside, the late hit, which was, by the way, egregious. Like, what are you doing? I don't know what he was doing. I said that he may be getting frustrated. And when you've got that much expectation on you to be the best defender in college football, to be the top pick, and you don't have the sack yet, you aren't making the impact that you expect. I think the frustration was evident for Will Anderson, but you're exactly right. I'm so impressed with Dallas Turner. I had to, let's just say my first comment about his hit is what I still believe.
That it was a penalty, not that it was dirty.
I still think it's like, what do you want him to do?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yours is in the air. He goes up, like, you land hard. Do you want him to give him a pillow?
Yeah.
I mean, I was a quarterback. I got my AC joint blown out, and it's like, I just don't, and they said, oh, you drove him into the ground. Okay. I mean, I guess. So they were,
I mean, it's gravity.
Behind the scenes, I was getting a lot
air.
of pressure to come back and say, like, letter of the law, that was the correct call. Let's just say that.
Wow.
During the game, which is what I said at halftime. And regardless, I'm really impressed with Dallas Turner. Toa is a fabulous player. And up front, they're sensational. I think that they're deep, as far as stopping the run. So the biggest issue they had was the grabbing from the corners and unable to keep up with the speed and that. But man, that front seven is good. And so you're going to be in every game, even with all these issues, you're going to be in every game. And by the way, folks, remember now, Texas is not just like, oh my gosh, this is a 5-7 team. Yes, they're a 5-7 team. They're also a team that just rolled out five-star starters on offense. I mean, Bama's not going to see an offense as talented as what Texas put on the field. Georgia might be as good. There might be some schemes that are more difficult to face potentially, but Texas is really talented, so underachieving over the last few years, but very talented. So I don't want it to be totally doom and gloom. There's certainly things that they need to work on and get better at, and they'll be right there and they'll fix them. This is Nick Saban we're talking about, guys. They're going to fix some of these issues. There's no doubt. I fully expect them to roll out in their next ball game. Who do they got? ULM. I bet you they run the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
Just hammer the run game. Wouldn't you expect that?
Yeah. Just to prove that they can and try to fix that problem.
Back to one of your points, man, I really wish Quinn Ewers would have been able to finish this game because I couldn't have been more wrong about him, Klatt, on Friday.
Me too. Behind the scenes, me too, dude.
I was like, he's going to be overwhelmed. The game's going to be way too fast. He's going to make multiple mistakes, at least 2 picks. I said one of the easiest props out there is over 1.5 picks for Ewers. And the dude made completions of 46, 22, 17, 14, made every throw, was calm, collective, looked like he'd been playing the game for 3 years.
I told our group on Friday night, I went through the entire game, and then I kind of always come back to a bottom line. And I said, bottom line, guys, I don't think Quinn Ewers and his lack of experience is ready for this. And I'll, you guys know, I'll say when I'm wrong, and I was wrong to my group. Thankfully, I didn't say that publicly because, man, he was much better from week 1 to week 2. Against ULM, he was waiting on deep throws. He wasn't anticipating those. And I thought to myself, like, this ain't going to work. If they need to take deep shots, he can't wait till he sees them. He's going to be underthrowing them. They're going to be picks. And man, he was really good. He looked like the guy who got a 1,000 rating coming out of high school, right? I mean, that's what he looked like.
Yep.
He looked like a guy that was rated properly. And I think even Bama fans, to some extent are like, man, I'm happy with the win, but I sure wish we could have seen them play Texas at full strength. Because like I said, and I said it on my podcast, and I believe this, the way that this game played out, if Quinn stays healthy, Bama's going to have a really hard time winning that game. Really hard time winning that game. And once Hudson Card was in the game, the scoring area offense took a huge dump, and then they missed a field goal.
Zach says in the chat room, Klatt is wrong. Against ULM, Bill O'Brien will refuse to run it. Will still be air raid all day. That's just life of a coordinator in this league. Yeah. Here's Joel Klatt. Who you guys got this week, Klatt? I am so sorry to ask you that on the fly.
No, I don't.
No, Oklahoma, Nebraska.
Oklahoma, Nebraska.
You won't be talking to Scott Frost, will you?
Nothing to talk about there.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
right. Oklahoma, Nebraska, 11 o'clock, Fox 6 in the big noon kickoff. That's primetime on Fox. Fox 6 here locally. You'll see Klatt and Gus there, and Jenny there in Lincoln for the start of the Mickey Joseph era as interim coach. Yeah.
By the way, guys, I thoroughly enjoyed being around Bama, covering Bama, doing the game. I know the fan base was not thrilled with our broadcast, but it was really fun to be around them. And I got some absolute nuggets. I come away with even more respect than I had for Coach Saban, and it was already immense. So that was a fun week for me. I really, really enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah. I knew the Alabama fans were percolating early when on her first hit, Jenny had black and white checks on, and I sent a screen grab and I said, "Oh, the All-American girls got houndstooth on," and I got educated on the difference between black and white checks and houndstooth. I didn't know there was a difference.
Oh man, they were on edge, man. They were on edge. They do not like it when their team doesn't play well.
No, that's a given.
Who does?
Yep.
Who does?
All right.
That's true.
So Oklahoma, Nebraska, 11 o'clock Saturday, Fox 6. Klatt, thank you for the time. Have a great week.
You got it. See you, boys.
All right, buddy. We'll see Klatt next Monday. He joins us each week on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, courtesy of mybookie.ag. Use code NEXTROUND for that double deposit bonus when visiting mybookie.ag.